Flight attendants and pilots, what not safe for work things occur during your job? Story 1. Not a pilot of FA, but I fly between 100 and 150 flights a year. One time I was flying out of a small Midwest airport to Dallas. I roll up to the airport restaurant/bar to get a bite and a drink before takeoff when I noticed this lady sitting by herself at the bar and a gentleman approaches her. They seem to be hitting it off, flirting, laughing, etc. The time comes to board the plane, and since this was on Southwest Airlines, it picked your own seat. Naturally, they sit next to each other. I am a few rows behind them. Flirting leads to touching and then kissing. You can see that hands are wandering everywhere. By this point, I'm not the only casual observer. About 3 or 4 other guys are looking and laughing, and we all bond over their public display. It escalates to a point where she gets up to go to the bathroom. About 30 or 40 seconds later, he follows. Apparently, they thought that was enough time to be inconspicuous. As he approaches the bathroom, she is already in. A flight attendant stands in front of him and says, "No, back to your seat." She knocks on the door and tells the lady to get back to her seat. All the observers are laughing at this point. The flight continues and she's practically mounted on him, doing everything they could possibly do while keeping clothes on. This continues until we land and all deplane. She quickly hurries off the plane. He is a few steps behind her, but she seems to be in a hurry. The other observers and I are thinking about it and laughing as we exit the secure area into the baggage claim area. Then we see her, still several steps ahead of the guy, and she runs into the arms of her boyfriend and starts kissing him. Her flight guy just stops dead in his tracks, takes a couple of seconds to observe, and then just leaves. I haven't laughed so hard in public with people I had never met prior to or since. Story 2. As a flight engineer in the AF, flying out of an island in the Pacific when a sailor had fallen overboard and drowned. The Navy recovered his body a few days later. Since this is downrange, only a body bag is available, not a transport casket. Before takeoff, the loadmaster comes to the cockpit screaming, yelling, and babbling. He says the body in the bag is wiggling. Turns out eels have entered his body via his mouth and are wiggling within his body and causing the movement. Story 3. Just a plane passenger, but this happened on my last flight. About halfway through, the pilot comes over the intercom and says, "Please come out of the bathroom. Smoking in an airplane is illegal." Naturally, this gets the whole plane on edge. Turns out it was an old woman who was completely naked and vaping in the bathroom while refusing to come out. They eventually had to break into the bathroom and take her out, which then caused the woman to try and fight the flight attendants. She was arrested as soon as we landed. Story 4. Used to fly a small commuter plane with 19 passengers with no door behind the cockpit, and also no flight attendant. It's really loud, so communicating is difficult. Hand signals only kind of thing. Just took off on a 30-minute flight and a passenger taps my shoulder, which startles the hell out of me because I can't see him approach me and I'm hand flying. Turns out he just needs to take a leak. Okay, no big deal, except we don't have a bathroom on the plane. We do have these gel packs to use though, so I hand him one and go back to flying the airplane. No autopilot. The flight is full, and I'm not sure where I expect him to go. Back to his seat, maybe? No. Instead, I look over to the other pilot, and only inches away from our face is this dude's long, wrinkly dick and hairy bush that probably hasn't been kept to in decades. As the guy is picking into the gel pack, we hit some rough air, and urine is going everywhere at this point. On the avionics, both of our uniforms, and my bag. If that wasn't enough, the whole plane saw it. Once he's done, he hands me the gel pack, like I'm supposed to do something with it. Oh no, buddy. I hand him some napkins and point to go back to his seat. The things you must put up with. Whoa. That passenger definitely took the whole no bathroom situation to another level. But seriously, who thinks it's okay to hand back a used gel pack? I mean, come on, man. Have some decency. Story 5. Not really on topic, but I fly a lot for work, and one time I walked to the bathroom as a flight attendant was walking out. She saw me heading in right after her and said, "Be careful, there's a bomb in the bathroom." I think it was a nervous reference to her having just blown up the toilet, and she quickly realized what she said as I gave her a perplexed look walking into the bathroom. She pulled me aside as I walked out and apologized profusely, probably knowing she'd have lost her job if someone less understanding had heard it. Story 6. Not me, but a friend who's a flight attendant who came across this really stubborn male passenger who wanted a sanitary pad that he saw the flight attendant hand over to a female passenger, convinced it was an eye mask thingy you put on before sleeping. Arguing with her about it, she finally gave in and gave the sanitary pad to the guy, who coolly removed the anti-adhesive and stuck it on his eyes and went to sleep. Story 7. A couple of our boys were on the return leg of an offshore crew change. 15 minutes off from the deck, they catch movement in the back. One of the passengers has unbuckled his harness and is getting out of his seat. Big no on a helicopter. But before they can do or say anything, the guy grabs an airsick bag, drops his DAX, positions the bag under his bum, and lets rip. The bag lasted maybe 3 seconds. Explosive doesn't do this bout of diarrhea justice. Volcanic might not. If I hadn't seen the photos, I wouldn't have believed it. It coated the floor, his seats, the seats beside it, and the poor sods in them, splashed the windows and ceiling and row of seats behind. It was everywhere, and the smell was awful. The real kicker is that even though they're only 15 minutes from the rig, they couldn't go back. If they did, the chopper would be stuck on the deck until it could be decontaminated by a cleaning crew. There's only one deck, so we'd have to send a second helicopter out to winch down said cleaning crew. A dangerous and expensive operation. Meanwhile, everyone due to come off a swing in the next few days would be stuck on the rig until we did. While there wouldn't be enough beds in the town for the incoming crews, and the nature of the rig is such that it can't fully operate while there is a chopper on deck. Literally millions of dollars in lost production. One dude with a rumbly tummy he didn't tell the rig medic about because he was just that keen to get home, and several hundred people are, potentially, right up creek. So they take one for the team and push on, telling the culprit to sit back down and put his harness back on and pray for a tailwind. 2 hours flying back to base. It's Australia, tropical and summer, and commercial helicopters don't have great aircon. The smell gets worse and worse, and it's not helped when some of the guys have to use the sick bags for their intended purpose. By the end of the flight, the pilots are all but flying with their heads out of the cockpit windows, just to breathe, and have given serious consideration of landing as soon as they were over the mainland. In the end, the guy's seat and the seat of the guy to his right were so saturated, so caked and stained and soaked with his that we had to write them off. Tens of thousands for replacement, plus more in maintenance and lost flying time. The guy in that second seat sat there, coated head to toe in his seatmate's shit, the entire flight, without moving or saying a single word. Story 8. My wife and I bought last-minute tickets to a family event and couldn't get seats next to each other. Once we boarded, I convinced the guy sitting next to my wife to switch seats with me. The nice guy takes my assigned seat, which was next to a woman who was apparently suffering from the flu. 5 minutes after takeoff, she vomited but tried to use a pillow to cover her mouth, which just made the vomit spray out sideways, all over the poor guy. He just sits there for a moment, frozen, and then slowly turns back to look at me with his face that says, "You did this to me and I will forever hate you for it." I offered to buy him a drink, but he ignored me. It was a 6-hour flight. Oh man, talk about bad luck. Poor guy must have thought he'd hit the jackpot when he switched seats, only to be hit with a surprise vomit shower. I can only imagine the look on his face. It must have been a mix of disbelief and pure disgust. I gotta say though, you trying to smooth it over with the drink is hilarious. Story 9. I was on a flight to China when one of the passengers in the business class decided to take advantage of the unlimited drinks he was offered before takeoff. He got plastered, and when the plane started to take off, he decided to take a sleeping pill to tide him over for the 14-hour flight we were about to endure. Well, shortly after takeoff, the guy decided he needed to use the bathroom. He ventures back to where the stalls are, but shoots past them. He walks about 3 rows ahead of my row, whips out his member, and pisses all over the row and the people in it. They had to move the passengers, rip out the seats, and monitor the guy for the rest of the flight. Whatever happened to him, I have no idea. I'm just glad he didn't hold it in for 3 more rows. Story 10. Obligatory, not me, but a friend of mine disclaimer. I have a female friend who flies transatlantic as a flight attendant, who told me a story of how one of the passengers had been in the bathroom for at least 15 minutes. Being a busy flight, people were pissed off and complained to her that he had been in there for a long time. She went to the door, knocked a couple of times with no response. Obviously, being concerned for this passenger's safety, the doors were opened. Inside was a guy on the toilet, trousers around ankles, headphones in his phone with porn playing, and a flaccid penis in hand. Bro fell asleep while whacking it in an airplane toilet. Embarrassment ensued. Story 11. This happened to another pilot at our company. We fly small planes with no doors between the cockpit and the cabin, and we usually put our jackets behind our seats. The passengers sitting in the front seats could easily grab them without us noticing. At the end of one flight, he noticed that the passenger on the left front seat was sitting on his jacket. Very odd, but whatever. The passenger deplaned and he went to pick up his jacket. That's when it hit him. The passenger had taken a shit on the seat, grabbed the pilot's jacket and put it over the shit and sat back down on it. It was only a 20-minute flight. How badly do you have to go? Story 12. I was a flight attendant in the Marine Corps. Inside joke, helicopter crew chief. A mechanic who flew in the back of a helicopter and served as the aircraft commander's extension of authority in the cabin of the plane. I also loaded cargo, calculated weight and balance, operate crew-served weapons, and generally just worked as an additional set of eyes and ears, especially for things the pilots can't see, as in looking straight down. Anyways, I worked on V-22s, and for cross-country flights, we would go up over 10,000 feet. We had a bunch of auxiliary fuel tanks in the cabin, so you could squeeze by them if you needed, but can't really see back there. The guy in the back said to me on ICS, internal comm system, "Hey, I'm going off ICS. If you don't hear from me in 2 minutes, come back and put my oxygen mask on." He came on ICS a short time later and I asked on a private channel what was going on, so the pilots wouldn't hear. He took off his oxygen mask at 25,000 feet so he could jerk off while hypoxic, along the lines of autoerotic asphyxiation. Never a dull moment in the skies, huh? Sounds like your buddy wanted to take living on the edge to literally new heights. Guess he wanted to put his own spin on the term autopilot while being hypoxic. Can't say I envy your position though, having to potentially come to his rescue mid-situation. A memorable flight for sure, but probably not in the way most people would want to. Story 13. My mom has been a flight attendant for Air Canada for 43 years. I've heard lots of stories, but one always stuck with me. Back in the 80s, when China was just opening up, my mom would get a lot of older folks from rural China on her flights from Beijing to Hong Kong. Apparently, many of these people had never seen a modern flush toilet before. On more than one occasion, they would simply close the lid, position themselves on top of the toilet, and promptly defecate on top of the toilet seat before leaving. Also, many of these folks would apparently just suck up huge gobs of phlegm and spit them right in the middle of the aisle. Luckily, things have gotten better in the intervening years. Story 14. I used to work as a baggage guy, loading and unloading planes. On our planes, we had to put the passengers' pets in a small area in the front belly compartment. We had an inbound flight that had quite a few pets on board. When I opened the compartment door, I was hit with the most gut-wrenching dog shit smell. Once I was able to see through my watery eyes, I saw one large dog kennel pressed up against the small kennel. The idiots that loaded the plane put both the kennels' front gate ends together. The larger dog must have pressed its ass up against and through the gate because the little dog was covered in it and in the corner quivering and whimpering. Trying to explain and apologize to the little dog's owner was one of the hardest and funniest things I've ever had to do. Story 15. I'm not a pilot or a flight attendant, but I do work the ramp. There are a few things I'd like to share quickly. Ladies, please wear underwear, and the guys too. Working smaller regional jets, I've seen a lot of, naughty bits, because some people prefer to go commando. When you walk down the jet bridge and leave your carry-on for valet, if you wear a skirt and no underwear, the people on the ground 12 feet below you have a chance to catch a glimpse of your bits. It's not often, but after 10 years of doing this, I've seen quite a few people's junks, both male and female, because of shorts/skirts and commando. We're not offended, but we'll make lame jokes about your for the next 10 minutes. Put a goddamn name tag on, and in your bag, but it falls off. If you have no quick way to ID who you are in your bag, we search and catalog your belongings, like the dirty, crusty panties I had to dig through, wearing gloves, to find the syphilis meds to help return a lady's bag. Or the bag with the laptop with the huge Iowa Hawkeye sticker on it, to which the password was GoHawks1. That took 4 tries to guess, and their browser history was eclectic. Found that joker on Facebook after closing the various porn tabs. Khaki pants and some J. Crew shirts are not enough to ID a person. Or the single screws guy whose bag had no ID, and we ended up sending it to HQ to sit it in a warehouse. That guy had like 10 to 12 Polaroids of his dick just laying about in his bag. Not in a stack, no, layered throughout his clothes. His photo from the singles cruise was all we had to go on. No name, just dick pics, like a calling card or something. If you hand it to ladies on a singles cruise, will you find a mate? I still wonder about it. 20 plus condoms left over in the bag. Did he buy the big box and slam, or did he get the medium box and do okay? I tell you one thing, that dude had high hopes and swung for the fences. I've reconnected people to their bags through boner pills, names on magazine subscriptions to dubious publications, and all manner of diseases relating to naughty bits because of medicine. I've seen your porn, vibrators, crotchless panties, and your lubes. I have found actual photographs, like proper prints, of shit I won't describe, but it was old people doing stuff. We never say how we found you, nor do we mention your content at all. The looks on people's faces when they come to collect, or the shift in their tone of voice once they put 2 and 2 together is priceless. Use a goddamn name tag. You don't want syphilis, I'm sure. I don't want to touch your crusty ass underwear. Well, that's an eyeful. Sounds like you've seen more of people's private lives than you ever bargained for. It's kind of funny, though, how people forget that their bags aren't as private as they think. Story 16. I am a co-pilot for a company that charters private jets, and we had a customer who boarded with his bros and several beautiful women in revealing clothing. And in the air, we could hear a party going on in the back. Loud music, men laughing and cheering, and girls giggling. After a while, the door opens and someone taps me on the shoulder. I look and a completely naked woman casually asks me how much longer we have before landing. I tell her we have a couple more hours to go, and she returns to the back. Story 17. I'm not a pilot yet, but I am a qualified engineer. One summer, I was replacing a switch in the cockpit on a turnaround, and while I was walking through the gate, I noticed this kid, who looked about 6 years old, and it turned out had Down syndrome, asked her mom to take her to the toilet. Her mom replied, "No, I'm busy, 2 seconds." So I saw her just stand in the middle of the room and just literally, it was like a pool of The woman screamed at me, "Can you get someone to clean it up?" And I was like, whoa, 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 I'm just an engineer. That was pretty not safe for work. I feel sorry for whoever did have to clean it up, though. Reply 1. The worst part of any customer-facing position is all the they expect of you. It doesn't matter if you're an engineer, cashier, stockroom attendant, or telephone guy. To the customer, you're just another pawn there to fix their shit. I swear I hope I never have to do retail again. Story 18. On a flight to Cancun, everyone was drinking and getting their vacation early. Somehow, a passenger lets loose the most silent, most deadly fart ever. It was the kind of smell that caused complete strangers to become friends in a shared moment of horrid existence. Lots of gagging. The stench awoke my sleeping girlfriend. The stewardess, en route to a call button further up the section, stopped gagging and turned back around, fleeing to safety.
Please leave your story down below in the comments. I would absolutely love to make a video about them in the future. And also, don't forget to like and subscribe. And until next time, peace.